Hey, what is up, everybody, and welcome to the College Info Geek podcast, the internet's best resource for students looking to get ahead, but not a good resource for learning how to join the Nerf Special Forces.
Is that a real special force?
Well, if it is, I'm probably in trouble for even talking about it.
That's fair. I miss Nerf guns. Oh, wait. I should get the one out of the closet, and then
one right there.
I'm going to get the one out of my closet, and I'm going to ambush Ashley as soon as she gets home from her hard day at work.
You should do that.
I'm going to do it.
I absolutely
And the thing
condone
is,
this.
she won't see this message. And if she did see it, it would be far after it already happened. So
this is being recorded
Perfect
several
trap.
days in advance.
Perfect
so
trap.
She'll never see it coming. Yeah. So there's an elephant in the room, I guess. Well, number one, you're back. Welcome back.
I am back.
Welcome
Oh, yeah,
back
I
to
was
the
not in
show.
the last one. That's
No,
true.
you weren't on
I
the
forgot
last
that there
one.
was one where I wasn't, because I wasn't there, so I don't remember it.
People missed you.
I don't know why.
You don't read the comments on the YouTube channel, do you?
Not unless Ashley reads them and then tells me about a specific one that I need to respond to. Then I will occasionally go and look at it. I don't want to crowdsource my self-esteem, so I try not to pay too much attention to comments.
Well, we had one that says, Martin, boo. I think they're booing me. So that whole podcast mutiny thing that you talked about.
I do
10
like a good
episodes ago,
mutiny.
We could totally do that. Martin's been kidnapped by the cult of podcasts for being too cool and showing them up. This is just propaganda. Thomas is doing this against his will to cover their tracks and convince you to follow them instead.
So you know about the Illuminati?
Yeah.
You won't see me in another episode now.
This is my last one. Yeah, I miss Martin too. So yeah, people missed you. So where were you?
Well, I don't know where I specifically was when you were recording. I don't remember. But I may have been in any combination of hospitals or emergency rooms or hand surgeons' offices. Lots of fun stuff. So, we went to Minnesota. You were there. You remember.
I was there.
It was Minnesota. We tried this downhill mountain biking thing. And apparently, even a beginner downhill mountain bike isn't a great idea when you don't even know how to flat mountain bike.
Yeah.
Not really even familiar with the bike's turning or brakes, because they're different than like my casual townie that I just like lazily roll through paved roads on. So didn't really have the techniques to even like go around a turn on that kind of thing. And yet when you're going downhill, what happens is you keep going unless you ride the brakes the whole way, which is still scary. And the thing is, there are also like 8 people behind you. So you can't just stop, or people are just going to run into you. So I failed to foresee that risk. And so I went around this completely blind curve, and my main focus was on making the curve. Because still going a little faster than I wanted to, slowing down, going around the curve. What I didn't expect was that right after the curve was an elevation in the soil. So then the next part's kind of blank, but I definitely then flip somehow and slam my face into the ground, and I suddenly have a mouthful of dirt and I'm covered in blood.
Yep. And that is when I looked back and saw you on the ground. Yeah.
And so I'm confused, but my first reaction is I pull the bike off the trail because I don't want people to... If people run me over, like, what happens? If somebody crashes, right? What if I was dead? The next person then flips over the dead guy, leaving another dead guy. The next person flips over that person, and then the second person.
It's
and then
dead guys all the way down.
Yes, dead guys all the way down. Well, there's some dead girls, too, unless they're too good at this, and they see it coming, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was one of the dead guys in this
scenario.
scenario.
Fell before the roller, so there wasn't even like a jump to jump over your body.
There was nothing. I would have just been right in the way. So I'm confused, and eventually you find me. We walk down. It's great. Let's see.
We then, because you were very adamant.
Yes.
One, because it was Labor Day, and because you were very adamant about
so it's
seeing
Labor
Lake
Day.
Superior.
So the urgent care is closed.
We go to the urgent care. It's closed. And at the time, we didn't think it was bad enough to need ER, so we just went and saw the lake.
Oh, no, I'm stubborn about that.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'm stubborn about not going to emergency rooms because they're expensive. Eventually I caved, but I digress. So that place was closed, but I wanted to see Lake Superior because it's supposed to be so big that at least in some parts it feels like an ocean. And I would agree with that, having seen it now. But it's like I'm covered in my own blood, just all over my shirt and everything. I can't move my finger, and I'm just standing on like these rocks at the edge of the lake. I'm sure everybody else there was like, "What is this guy doing? Why is he hanging out there?"
Being awesome.
But that's one of the main things I wanted to see there. So
Yeah.
it was unacceptable to me that I would have to drive back 14 hours without seeing it, also injured. Not acceptable. So we did that. Later I did go to the emergency room. Because so the last time I was stubborn about an emergency room was after Sky Zone, broke a little bone in my ankle.
Yeah.
And my stubbornness meant that I don't know if they could have done anything, but there's a little piece of bone floating around in there forever, and maybe they could have done something smarter than let me not walk for a while.
Yeah.
So I decided, let's not risk that, because I can't move my finger. It turns out I did break it. I snapped the tip of it in half. And I had this huge laceration on my nose. They stitched that together. That was great. So first time mountain biking. First time getting stitches. First time being put under anesthetic for surgery. And first time having surgery. Lots of firsts. Great trip.
Yeah.
I loved it. Dad loved it. America loved it.
America loved it.
Yeah.
And it's worked out pretty well so far. It didn't work out pretty well, actually.
Yeah. I guess the good news is, but before we go too far into this, it does seem like I should regain most functionality, if not everything, in my finger. There are just screws in it now.
Which makes me feel a lot better about this.
The screws hold the bones together so they can heal together. Also, you can't see it even if you're watching because there's this splint on here to hold it and keep it protected. It basically looks like somebody put a nail directly into my finger. And it's a very unsettling thing to know about when it's your finger. It's very weird.
Yep.
Don't bump it. I'll be sad.
So I suppose what we're going to talk about for the most of this episode is some of the lessons that you learned from this, because it turned out to be a very enlightening experience in some unforeseen ways. Yeah. I want to talk about some things I learned.
Okay. That's good. You probably learned some stuff like
don't
put Martin on the mountain bike trail.
I did. So it was really funny. On your Instagram, there was a comment from somebody saying, like, by chance, did Thomas have anything to do with you going mountain biking? Yes.
They called you out so fast.
They really did. I mean, I guess like at this point we can say why we were there, because we've decided.
Yeah, I'm pretty sold.
So on our house buying episode, we talked about the fact that we were planning on moving back to Iowa. But because I am an extreme sports junkie and would like to live in a place that is not just flat plains land, we just basically shifted that to potentially moving to Minneapolis instead. And we went out there with the intent to basically evaluate the city.
Yeah.
Part of that was me needing to know, like, is there a place I can mountain bike in Minnesota? Because I live in Colorado. I live in, like, basically one of the two mountain biking capitals of at least the United States.
Yeah.
If not the world, the other one being Utah. So I'm, like, leaving that. And I learned, thanks to a channel called Seth's Bike Hacks, that in Duluth, Minnesota, there's a downhill lift-accessed mountain biking place. So I had done downhill once, and I started mountain biking, really only about a month ago. So it's kind of a new hobby for me. So we all went up there as part of our trip, and I wanted to go, and I guess this is one of the big lessons I learned. I assumed that because I felt confident and ready for it, that you would too. And my assumption came from a few different places. One being that you've skateboarded and longboarded with me and rollerbladed with me. So I'm like, okay, Martin has, if not the same breadth of experience in action sports, at least like some of the same capabilities in other areas. So I'm like, all right, he's ridden bikes a lot on the road and done all these mountain biking and everything, or not mountain biking, like skateboarding, rollerblading, all that kind of stuff. I think he'll adapt as quickly as I did. So that was assumption number one. And then assumption number two was that my very limited time mountain biking didn't really matter that much in terms of skill development. So really it was a case of like hubris on my part, but like me putting hubris onto you.
Yeah, I was like, as soon as we were jumping over rocks first thing, I was like,
And the other thing that I learned is Spirit Mountain's green runs are not green. Because so I've been to Aspen Downhill Park. That was the first one I went to. And then I have now been to Trestle. And I think that the greens at Spirit were more difficult than either one.
I really thought it would be kind of a mildly sloping, but not too steep, mostly just dirt with the occasional, like those turny parts,
berms,
those things. I didn't expect going off of stuff.
I didn't expect it either.
And sharp blind curves with, like I can't see past that. It's a blind curve.
The green I did in Aspen
Weird
was that.
beginner
It
thing.
was. I mean, it was fast, but it was flowy, smooth, single track dirt with some berms, and that was about it.
Yeah, that's
so
what
I was like, okay, I think Martin can handle that, because I was like, and we got to the top, and I'm like, all right, here's how you brake, here's how you position your body over the bike, like here's how you turn. But it was just more than I was expecting, and it was clearly more than you were.
And you're already on it by the time you see this.
Yes.
You're like, oh well, there are people coming.
Yeah.
I guess my plan was just to get to the bottom, say, I think this was actually more than I was ready for, and then not go again. I just didn't make it to the bottom to do that part.
Yes. So my public service announcement to the world here is, if you're interested in mountain biking and you see my pictures on Instagram or whatever, don't do downhill. Like,
you lose so much control.
Don't make it your first time. Don't make it even maybe your fifth time. Like, go do other things.
You should be good on the regular tracks.
And if you can, find a park in the city that has jumps and pump tracks and stuff like that. And this is another lesson I learned. I took Anna to one of the dirt bike parks in Denver, and I was like, Anna's ridden Ragbri with me, so she's ridden 50 miles in a day with me before. So my thinking is, Anna is great on the bike. Like, she's going to have no problem with this stuff. And she gets into the pump track, which is just like a really small, basically flat area with small rollers. So like not jumps, but just like little hill things. And then berms. Bikes. So just like a 180-degree turn. That's like a wide sloping thing. Like if you ever watched a NASCAR race, you know how like the turns kind of like slope up a little bit instead of just being flat.
Yeah.
So the forces can be transferred into the turn instead of flipping your car over. And I'm like, okay, she's great on the bike. She's going to have no problem going around this turn on the berm. And it actually took her about 3 or 4 times having to basically like lightly fall off the bike onto her feet, but like she wasn't able to stay on the bike in the turn. And it took her 3 or 4 times practicing actually getting the confidence to go around that even tiny berm. So your experience and her experience taught me riding a bike on the road does not prepare you for riding a bike in the dirt. You need to be very gradual with that skill progression.
Yeah.
And this is why I feel bad about this, because I feel like I encouraged you to go too far too fast.
Oh, I was definitely not going to do it if you weren't.
Yeah.
So that did happen, but I'm also glad I did it though.
Okay.
Now that I know I'm going to be, I'm annoyed about the surgery and all this stuff, but I'm glad that I wasn't willing to let hesitation or fear keep me from trying things. Yes, rolled the dice, and it kind of sucked this time. Mm-hmm. But if I let that become my rule, I will never do anything.
True, yeah.
So I can't live my whole life in fear. Sometimes bad things happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's life. I wonder if it would have been better to even, because this is the first time I've fallen off of something like that, not on purpose. In memory.
You've had to bail before, but it's always been
because I'll bail on rollerblades. I did that to avoid getting my knees crushed by a speeding car going downhill. Mm-hmm. And I bailed on the longboard once going downhill because I could say, oh, I'm losing control of the board. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to jump into the dirt. I'm going to roll a little bit. Maybe I'll sprain my wrist, but I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Whereas on a bike, I don't really know how to bail on something that's in between. I'm not as good at bailing on that.
Actually,
it's more obvious to me to bail on a skateboard because you just jump right off. There's nothing in the way.
True. For video audience, I have a big old scab on my arm right now. When I went up to Trestle, I did have to bail once.
Okay. I feel like bailing on a bike might just be something I've never had to do it before. Yeah. So I don't even know, because, it's
it's scary because you're
legs.
Exactly. You're like, how do I disentangle myself from this bike?
Yeah.
So, how it went for me was I did what's called a low side, where my bike lost traction, so it slid out, but I fell backwards, essentially, like as in the bike skidded out in one direction, and I fell to the back of the direction it was going. So I just basically slid out, let the bike sort of travel away from me, and then I got my scrape, but that was it.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
I think you high-sided, where the bike flipped, and then you either went over the handlebars or you went.
Yeah, I wish I remembered that part.
The way it was falling.
I think it was side.
Okay, so you high-sided, which is the worst way to go because you're flipping over.
It wasn't great.
And then the bike can come and hit you in the afterwards.
It did not do that.
I didn't do that.
I did not get hit extra by the bike. Also, to justify the title, right? So it's worth noting that I was wearing one of those big old helmets that like covers
full
your
face helmet.
full face helmet. Yeah, I
Yep.
didn't know the words. I will never be on a mountain bike without one because the thing is, I cut my nose real good. You could basically flip open the skin. They had to stitch it real good.
Yeah.
And that was with like 5 or 6 inches of helmet blocking my jaw and face from hitting the ground.
Yep.
And I had a mouthful of dirt. My mouth still got filled with dirt somehow. Without that helmet, even if I was wearing just a top one, I think I would have at least smashed my jaw and nose and very plausibly broken my neck.
Yeah. Yeah, it could have been bad.
It was a bad enough hit to go through the helmet and still hit my face. And there were like rocks in the ground. So I will be a helmet evangelist forever. Yeah. I almost didn't wear that one because I was like, it's like squeezing my cheekbones. It's not comfortable.
Yep.
But it would have been less comfortable if I was either dead or couldn't talk right now due to breaking my jaw open.
Yep.
Neither of those would have been great. So it was actually quite a weird thing because it happened so fast.
You know, that's the crazy thing. You can't
out of nowhere.
Anticipate it, right? It comes at the last possible expected moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's all this, it won't happen to me, I'll be fine, I can get down. But it literally, the potential for me to either be permanently disabled or killed took like half a second to happen.
Yep. Out
of nowhere. So I'm so glad I bought I rented the elbow pads and knee pads too because I scraped up the top of my knee real bad and it hurt a little bit, so I probably could have done worse there too. But it was definitely a dangerous fall. If I had not chosen to deal with the uncomfortable cheeks and go with that helmet, I would be very bad right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is my take from this. If you're going to get into mountain biking, if you're just going to be doing like, gradual single track, cross country stuff, maybe a full face isn't warranted. But if you're going to a downhill park or if you're going to a park with jumps, get the full face. I'm very, very glad that you were wearing it. The first time that I went and rented mountain bikes with my cousin, we just rented regular helmets. Luckily, nobody fell. And then I did my first downhill at Aspen with a regular helmet. Luckily, it didn't fall. But when it happened to you, I went out and I bought a full face.
Yeah,
the day I got back.
Never even consider going downhill without that or doing jumps or anything. Because the thing is, one, I talk. That's what I talk.
It is part of your job, yes.
It's part of my job.
And
it's
also,
nice to communicate with people, and I love foreign language, and I would be very upset if I either couldn't speak it or couldn't even reproduce the accents because of an injury to something in there. That would be upsetting to me. Luckily, I will lose probably nothing long term. Yep. So thank helmets. Thank Big Helmet. They're the conspiracy I can get behind.
There's this video of a downhill longboarder.
Oh, I've seen this one.
So he's coming down this hill, and the way that longboarders slow down is they skid like snowboarders.
They make it kind of sideways-ish to stop it.
Yeah, they literally skid the wheels sideways. So he does it to where his back is facing downhill, and it's not enough. So he just falls back, and he flies through the air, probably about 10 feet, lands on his back, but then his head just whips down to the concrete.
Yeah.
But he's wearing a helmet, so he gets up and he's just like, I love helmets. I love helmets.
Because
oh man.
Ooh, helmets are good.
Yeah. So
they feel uncool, but they're
So is this one of your lessons then out of the 3?
Oh no, this is just to justify the title.
Oh, okay.
This is to justify. I'm not trying to be over dramatic here. The nurse was very seriously like, if I wasn't wearing that, I might be dead right now.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think about that in reflection, how quickly it could have happened.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I'm not just trying to clickbait. Anyway,
so wear your protective gear, and I think this goes for any sport. Like, you and I have probably climbed some things on hikes that we shouldn't have climbed.
I have definitely said, this is a dumb decision, Tom. Why would you do that? And then I did it.
Yeah, you and I both did it. Like, we were kind of clung to some like class 4, possibly class 5 stuff in Bear Peak, and in hindsight, like, shouldn't have done that. Should have had gear.
Yeah.
So now that it's happened, and so this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I hate that I'm like taking advantage of something that's happened to you to like pull a lesson for myself because it makes me feel guilty about it. But I feel like you can learn just as much from a mistake or something bad that happens to someone else as you can from when that happens to you, as long as you take it seriously enough.
Yeah, as long as you're not like, oh, that's not me.
Yeah.
I would never accidentally fall after going around a blind curve and hitting an elevation in the soil while uncontrollably going fast downhill.
Yeah.
Because clearly my instincts are such that no blind curve is blind for me. I see it.
And it would be very easy for me to think that because, like, I've ridden those trails.
Well, if you're confident in your skill level, it's easy to just say, well, I have a 100% chance of not messing up. Why would I mess up?
But what that means is I'm likely to go onto something that is beyond my skill level because I have, and I realize this in myself, I have the potential to be overconfident in my skills. Which, I mean, when I went to Trestle, I was on black diamond runs. And the scars on my arm right now, I fell. And the reason I fell is because I was riding Rainmaker, a black diamond trail, and I saw a jump, and I saw to the side of a jump, a kind of angled, curvy jump, and I was like, I've never ridden this trail before. I'm riding it blind, but I'm gonna take that jump. Why not? So I took it, and I didn't know it was on the other side of the jump. Well, what was on the other side of that little angly jump was a bunch of loose dirt that gave my bike no traction. So, and that's why I fell. The bike skidded out. The tires couldn't bite the ground enough, and I low-sided.
At least you didn't get hurt that bad, though.
I didn't get hurt badly.
Just scraped your arm.
I was fortunate enough not to get hurt, and I was wearing all the protective gear. But again, I'm trying to take seriously what happened to you because I know that the same thing could happen to me.
It's like a dice roll.
Yeah.
That separated the severity of an accident. You know.
And I think I take it more seriously because I'm, very close to you, and I was literally there when it happened.
Oh, if a stranger gets hurt, it's hard to, because a lot of people aren't empathetic to things until it happens to them or their family or their friends, and then they're like, oh wait, I do take this seriously now. But
yeah, you have to learn to discount all of or you have to learn to sort of not let your emotions discount the facts.
Yeah.
So you're so far away from something that happened, you're so distanced from it that you say that's not going to happen to me. That's not significant to me. I'm not one of the outliers. It's easier to kind of quell those voices when it happens to somebody very close to you or when it happens to your riding buddy on the trail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, wear your helmets.
Yeah. So, all right. So do you have anything else that you learned from this?
I probably do, but those were the main things. It was wear helmets, but also do your best to learn from the misfortunes, mistakes, all those kind of things that other people go through if you can. I don't think that you have to fail in a certain dimension to learn how to not fail there again. You can learn to anticipate and see, the factors and the signals that will cause something to happen based on the stories from someone else.
Cool. All right. So anyway, the three main things I learned. These are going to be like overall life things that I learned because, the first lesson, I'll explain it. So the first lesson is to get through my biggest fears. I basically need to tackle them head on. This sucks. I already kind of know it because it's part of my treatment for obsessive compulsive disorder. So the very first thing was forced practice for something that I dreaded and I hated the idea. When the first guy told me I'm probably going to need stitches, I was like, I don't want to get stitches. I've never had stitches. I don't know how that works. I hate things that I can't predict like that. But, I had to do that. I didn't have a choice. That happened in the ER right there that night. And when he was putting the needles with the numbing stuff seemed way too long. I don't really know where they went. And I don't like that. But the whole time I was just like, I hate everything about this. Everything except you. You're cool. But I hate everything about this because, yes, it caused me great anxiety because I hated it. But, you keep going through it until it's in your past, and then it's okay.
Yeah.
Unless it traumatizes you. But that was fine. So, basically, I had to push through. But that was nothing because I've also been kind of terrified of the idea of surgery forever.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of anesthetics. And being put under. And
you had never done it before.
I had never done it before. I've been putting off getting my wisdom teeth out for years because similarly.
So that was the reason?
Because I'm scared to be put under.
Yeah.
Specifically. I don't like losing control. I'm not even awake, right? So I can't even watch and be making sure they're doing what they're supposed to or that they're doing it right. Yeah. Even though why would I be the expert? I wouldn't. I just don't like losing control. Yeah. And you sign the waiver and it's very explicitly in rare cases, you might die. You might not wake up from this. So basically, given the obsessive compulsive disorder, naturally, I thought about this the whole time, And I've ramped it up to basically, I basically felt like I was going to die. You know, it was pretty stressful. So when I go to the hand surgeon, he's basically like, you're going to need surgery for this. And I'm like, fine. And then they're like, okay, we'll look at dates. We're looking at tomorrow. And I was like, why?
So you get no time.
I guess that's better than thinking about it for a week. Fine. I hate you, but schedule it.
Yeah.
And so I spend that whole day now. Like I get back and I feel like it's my last day. You know, everybody says live like it's your last day. I actually felt like it was because I was so scared of getting put under.
Yeah.
You know, because I could die, just like I could fall on the mountain bike. It could happen. It's not likely, and I didn't. But so I spent that whole day, like, we made this pumpkin crisp. We made a great dinner. I spent more time with Ashley than I normally feel like I get to, because all of this stuff that I had been afraid about for the future, all the guilt that usually makes me work harder, was gone. What does it matter if you think you're about to die?
Right.
But so when I had to do that, and I had to go to the operating room, and I had to do all this stuff, and they were like explaining all the anesthetics, and I was like, I hate everything about this, but I understand that I can't really pull this IV out, run, and say, haha, I'm just going to have arthritis and a messed up finger forever. You can't fool me. Like, I know it's the right decision to do it.
Yeah.
Even though I literally have, like, the maximum amount of anxiety you can feel about something. Because I really accepted it and enjoyed that day, the previous day and the whole morning. I finished a book. I went outside. In the waiting room, I just stared at how the sun was hitting tree leaves. And I accepted it. And that is terrifying. So I had to let them do something I hated more than anything. And afterward, now I'm not as scared of it. It's terrifying, and nothing about it could have changed that. But the important lesson is that I still just had to do it. I just had to do it. And I'm going to try to apply that same thing to my fear of planes, since I've never been on one.
Yeah.
Because nothing I say, nothing I research, nothing will ever make that feel better to me, because it's not my experience. I haven't personally seen what it's like or felt it.
Yeah.
You know? You could tell me all day, oh, I've been put to sleep tons of times. I've had tons of surgeries. And then there's still going to be a part of my stupid brain that's going to be like, yeah, well, what if it, like, killed the first version of you and, like, a parallel universe version woke up? I wouldn't know, right? So maybe you guys won't think I'm dead, but I'll be dead?
Yeah.
What? It doesn't make any sense. But nothing can disprove that to me until I do it. So I was forced to learn this lesson, but I think I'm going to try to do it with planes.
Okay.
Nothing can get you through those biggest fears other than proving they're not as bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like this is the ultimate silver lining to this experience.
Yeah.
Because I was starting to get to the point where I'm like, I don't know if you're ever going to go on a plane, because there's nothing forcing you to do it. Especially like you drove to Portland, and that's, what is that?
Yeah, and I liked that.
20 hours or something.
The only thing that would have had to force me would be like trying to go to Japan or something.
Yeah,
Except for a little part of me was still like, can I get on a ridiculous boat even though that's way more risky?
You can.
Like,
you can actually charter a room on a container ship.
I would have considered it.
You can do it. It takes 2 weeks.
I would have considered that ridiculous. That sound like a cool adventure to do like once, but like as a general transportation form, probably not reasonable.
I remember I was following a blog from a guy who was trying to circumnavigate the globe without using a plane. So that was his method of getting across the Pacific Ocean.
I may have seen that while researching how to avoid planes.
Do I remember? I think I remember him saying, "This was an experience that I'm glad I did, and I'll never do it again."
Yeah, it's like
it's 2 weeks, and you're basically by yourself because the crew's got work to do all day.
Well, that's like a story that you get to tell forever.
Yeah,
but it's not like you want to do it a second time. Even I don't think I'd want to do it a second time. But it's very possible that fear could have kept me from doing it, because the belief that you are not supposed to, that the solution to getting through something that causes you anxiety or fear is to wait until it's not so scary.
Yeah,
it's
just always scary.
That doesn't make any sense, because every single time I avoid flying, every single time I avoid a surgery, I'm still safe. So my mind is like, see that? You're still safe.
Yeah.
Because you didn't get on the plane, huh? It's like, I scare off rhinos. Look, there are no rhinos. Like, you have really dumb anti-proof or something.
Yeah.
That just makes it scarier and scarier, as you're like, well, what if the only reason I ever survived was because I kept not doing that thing?
Yeah, yeah.
So Basically, it's not going to get much better. You just have to accept that sometimes the present sucks, and you just have to keep doing that until it's not the present anymore. And now it's fine. It's in the past, and I can let that diminish in my memory as much as I want.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, this isn't a great price to have to pay for that revelation, but it is worth something.
It's a useful thing.
This week's episode of our show is brought to you by our friends over at Brilliant, who make an excellent tool for learning math, science, and computer science a lot more effectively through the art of problem solving and active learning, which incidentally were two things that I did not do a very good job of utilizing when I was in high school taking my calculus course. If you've listened to this show for quite a while, then you probably know that one of my greatest regrets from high school was doing pretty poorly in calculus, and the reason for this was that I shied away from tough problems. I didn't have the mental toughness, the grit to really approach a tough problem and feel confident that I could do it if I just focused on it for a good amount of time. I basically disengaged from tough problems when I didn't feel there was an obvious solution to them. And as a result, I didn't learn calculus very well, and that actually altered my college plans. Luckily, things turned out pretty well, but I originally wanted to be an engineer, and I sort of disengaged from that desire because of my experience in calculus. And what I've learned in the intervening years is that if you can build this mental grit, this mental toughness, this desire and confidence to approach problems that seem impossible at first, and you can commit to actually sitting down and working at them for a while, you will eventually solve them, and you will get universally better at doing so. And that is exactly the philosophy that Brilliant uses when they develop their courses. So one of the courses that I want to highlight in this week's ad here is, of course, their Calculus Done Right course. Because it uses this active learning philosophy, because it immediately throws you into challenging problems, you're going to learn calculus a lot more effectively than you would just sitting in a classroom. Now, if you do want to brush up on some more fundamental math concepts before you dive into calculus, they have courses on Algebra 2, as well as a course on conics and trigonometry. So you can go through that entire sequence and solidly learn calculus. Now, within Brilliant's library, you're also going to find courses on things like gravitational physics, classical mechanics, and computer science algorithms. So overall, it is a great way to improve your understanding of math, science, and computer science while also becoming a better all-around problem solver in the process. So if you want to start learning for free today, then head on over to brilliant.org/collegeinfogeek. And if you're one of the first 83 people to do so, you're also going to get 20% off of their annual premium subscription. I want to give a big thanks to Brilliant for being a sponsor on this episode and a huge supporter of our show, and also give a big thanks to our second sponsor today's episode, Todoist. Now, you might have heard me rave about Todoist before, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again. Todoist is our favorite task management / to-do app for students. It is one of my favorite apps all around because, in my mind, it is an app that helps you make sure nothing ever slips through the cracks in your life. Now, one of the ways that it helps you do this is by allowing you to create individual projects for all the different aspects of your life. I like to call these life buckets. I'm not sure why I use that term, but it makes sense in my head. Essentially, a life bucket is any sort of like different category in your life. So an individual class or project you're working on independently or a part-time job. Within Todoist, you would want to have an individual project for each one of these things so you can keep all of your tasks nice and organized. But Todoist also has two different lists, one called Today and one called Next 7 Days. And by setting due dates in your individual projects for the tasks, you're going to be able to check these two lists every single day to see what is coming up in every aspect of your life. You don't have to go through all these individual projects. And this is what helps you never let anything slip through the cracks and helps you stay on top of everything all throughout your life. Todoist also has a premium subscription that gets you access to lots of advanced features like task templates and notes on tasks along with filters. And what's best, if you're a student, you can go over to todoist.com/education to get a 50% student discount on that premium subscription. Once again, that is todoist.com/education, and I'll go ahead and spell it out for you right now, todoist.com/education to get 50% off if you're a student. That's just about $1.20 per month for what I think is the best task management app out there for students. Once again, big thanks to Todoist for sponsoring this week's episode and being a supporter of our show, and let's get back into it.
And related to that, my second lesson here is that I've been relying too much on negative motivators instead of positive motivators.
Yeah.
So things like guilt, overly high expectations of myself, overly high expectations for how much absurd numbers I should have in the bank for no reason. Really nothing behind it that makes sense. But
yeah.
a lot of like pressure that I put on myself all the time. So I work hard because I'm a worthless failure if I don't.
Right.
That kind of motivation has been my primary motivation for a while. And it's not that great of a motivator. I think that those disappeared as soon as I thought I was going to die. As soon as I was like, I might die in surgery, that might happen, then the future wasn't real anymore. So all those motivators went away, and I was like, hey, what is this like calm free time thing that I'm doing? This is nice. And it made me realize that I should be focusing more on the positive motivators. Like, I want to do this and do a good job of it. I'm having fun. I'm like, anything that isn't based on I will punish myself mentally if I fail this. I would rather have I will reward myself mentally if I do this. So negative motivators, I think, are going to take away a lot of value from anything that you might do, even if you succeed, because it still won't be enough. There's always room to be more negative.
Do you think that there's a way that you would have ever learned this without going through something traumatic? Because, I mean, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast. I mean, you personally have talked about like accomplishment journals and all these methods for gaining positive motivation, and yet like you were unable to find it on a consistent basis for yourself.
Yeah, I've been like in and out of positive moods for a while, and then just back to the negative stuff. And I think that maybe eventually with a life shift, maybe after moving, like you feel like your life starts over at certain periods. I think that I've been getting better at it. Overall, the accomplishment journal was a great idea, and I've been getting a lot better this year than I was last year. But this kind of supercharged all lessons because it was a huge. And I think that I wouldn't have thought that so quickly, because every single night since then, like, and obviously I'm limited. I can't do everything. I can't exactly program at the same speed I was because there's a nail in my finger.
Yeah.
Why would you put that in my finger? But I've been spending much more time with Ashley, going for walks every day just because, like, really reading. I started reading again. I finished a book I had been on for like 2 months because I made everything about finishing things.
Yeah.
And now I'm just rereading Harry Potter because I felt like it, not because I thought it was supposedly a good idea to get through my to-read list or something. And I've kind of just been appreciating a lot of things more because I'm not so focused on no, you don't have time to do that. You're failing right now.
Yeah.
Now I'm just like, I'll do the work, but I'm going to actually clock out for once.
Yeah.
And that actually is my third lesson, is that I need to be disciplined about taking breaks from discipline.
Okay. So actually clocking out.
Yeah.
Which we've again talked about so many times, but it's hard to put it in
so,
practice.
It's so hard to put into practice because it's so easy to be disciplined about disciplining yourself. They go together. It makes sense. But then as soon as there's a break, I could work harder instead of taking a break. Maybe I would get more imaginary rewards for the future. But now I'm like, but I could have died within like a half a second span.
And all that work.
That would I'm saving up so much for the future, right? That I'm ignoring the present. So like everybody's heard like live each day like it's your last. It's all poetic and happy and stuff. But the reason we ignore it is because that's dumb advice. You should live, unless you're actually dying and you know it like quickly, you should not do that, because then I don't know what I'm eating tomorrow because I lived today like it was my last, burned my house down because I thought fire was pretty and ate the last of my food and the money's gone. I can't.
Even squirrels don't do that.
No, that's dumb. You have to plan for the future. You have to plan for the future a little bit, or you'd never bother going to school. You'd never have savings to protect you when an injury occurs. Because you'd be like, well, I thought I was going to die yesterday, so I kind of didn't get health insurance, and then the doctor's just going to think you're stupid because that's not a good explanation.
Yeah.
So the real thing that I want to make a point to do here is, I want to make sure that I have some free time. Not free time that I'm putting into projects. I want to have that time too. But I want to have some just relaxing free time on the average day. I can't have it every day, but sometime, and then spend all relaxing free time like it's your last relaxing free time.
Yeah.
That gives me room to be responsible for part of the day, do my work, maybe work on a side project, But on the average day, I want to make sure I have at least a little bit where I'm just kind of hanging out, doing stuff with Ashley, reading, doing something for pleasure and rest. And then I want to spend that like it was my last rest. Like I spent that day. We cooked food. I read books. We watched some stuff, went for a walk, did all this stuff where I was like, I guess if this did end up happening to be the end, I'd be okay. And, like, you can't do that all day long because then you don't do anything.
Yeah.
So it's really just spend your free time like it's your last. And I need to respect my own free time because, this is why it's like, look, I'm scrolling through Instagram. This is a bad use of my free time. My very limited free time, I should use it doing something else. Maybe I'll check Instagram occasionally. But if I find myself being mindless, I should remember, what if this was my last free time?
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah, because otherwise we just dismiss that, live each day like it's your last. You just dismiss it because it doesn't help you with your job,
That's a really good point. I'm writing a video about like social media addiction right now, and one of the main points is like you have to have priorities. And I think there's this quote from Peter Drucker who's like, if you tell me what your priorities and values are, I might believe you, but to really find out, I'm going to look at your pocketbook and your calendar. I want to see like what are you actually spending your time and your money on?
Yeah, your two finite resources.
Exactly, yeah. And if you're using your time to scroll through Instagram, then whatever you stated your priorities were, those aren't actually your priorities, or you haven't committed enough to them. So, and maybe it takes something traumatic like this to really remind you that like these are the things that I value. It's just so easy to put them off because I feel like I can do them for the rest of my life, and that feels like 70 more years.
Yeah, it absolutely feels like, why bother hiking this weekend? This weekend, I'm going to catch up on a work project because I could hike. Next weekend, I'm still going to be here, I assume blindly. That's not like useful.
Yeah, exactly. So, all in all, not a great experience, but
not that great.
Some
but
stuff
like
came of it.
Like a lot of stuff sucked in there. I don't really want another. I'm probably going to put off my wisdom teeth for a little bit so I don't have 2 surgeries this year. I want to get through autumn and enjoy it first. But
wait, you should well.
No, autumn's my favorite.
There's a part of me that's like, but you've probably already hit your deductible for the year, so you should do it this year so
we'll see.
Covers
once I get all the bills, we'll find out. Once I get all the bills. Those will probably show up in a month or so and we'll see what happens there. But I guess another point is anybody who follows me on Instagram may have noted that yesterday I posted my first macro in a while because I care so much now about not wasting my time that I had like surgical wrapping all over my left arm. So right now I've only got a splint on the finger. Technically I can kind of use the other fingers with the limitation that if I use them too much it really hurts my finger. But yesterday, or no, not yesterday, but when I had the surgical wrapping on, I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I cared so much about not wasting my time, I swapped my lenses out and went down to the Botanic Gardens, used autofocus because I didn't have much of a choice, and then like completely took photos with one hand, walking around looking like I just escaped from the hospital.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter that there was a limitation anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it was your limitation.
Yeah.
Just a different limitation.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter that I was like, I could have just been like waited, said I could take photos next week when I have things. But I also didn't want to stop posting daily because of this injury.
Yeah.
I might at some point, but it will be on purpose.
It'll be your decision.
Not due to fate.
Yeah.
But I think that's the kind of dedication that I want to figure out how to keep going forward. When I have free time, it doesn't really matter if I could say, I couldn't do photography perfectly. I can't use the lens that's my favorite.
Yeah.
Well, you can still do something instead of just waiting for the future to be better. That's not how the hedonic treadmill works. We already talked about this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is actually a decent follow-up to that.
Yeah.
I have to say that I was very relieved the afternoon you came down and started talking to me about all these sort of revelations you'd had and like all this kind of stuff you'd gone through.
I don't think you can think you're going to die without some revelations.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't really seen much of you before that because the surgeries were happening and everything, and because like I was going to the office and you were not going to the office on those days. And I was just like, worried about your mental state and all of it because you're just like, all I can do right now is like watch documentaries. And I was like, how would I react in that situation? I was worried about.
Oh, I hate TV, but I've been watching a lot. It's one of my few options right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously last week I did the episode solo because you were in surgery. And this week I was like fighting between like, do I just say I'll do it solo again? Or do I kind of like encourage you to do it with me? Because I didn't want to make you feel like you didn't need to do anything, because I was worried that would like make you feel, I don't know.
Oh, I don't like feeling useless.
Yeah.
But I'm taking this way better than I took my nerve injury. Because I have the
Yes.
2 years long nerve injury to compare this to, I'm like, oh, well, I can at least do things one-handed. I can't really cook. I can't do a lot of stuff, but I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the nerve injury, it was just kind of, this hurts a little bit, but I'm not even taking the pain medication they gave me because it's nothing compared to the nerve injury.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't care.
Yeah.
This isn't that big of a deal now that I've made it through surgery.
Yeah.
Except for the weirdness that is having a metal rod sticking out of your finger.
That is weird.
That will never not be
pretty
unsettling.
Metal,
Wait.
but
Yeah, that's the right. I used too many negatives and confused myself.
it's like that Painkiller movie, except for instead of having like dozens of metal pins sticking out of your head, it's just one out of your finger. But it's pretty similar.
it's
than
so
that.
weird though because I can't feel it most of the time.
I know,
It
right?
feels like I should always notice it.
Yeah. It's weird how your body just adapts to like a thing being there.
Yeah.
One lesson I learned, and this is like on a less philosophical note, because you were driving back, you had like literally had to drive back from Minneapolis and spend 13 hours in the car.
Yeah.
I flew back to Denver and then tried to book the doctor's appointment for you, because I was like, how are you going to drive with a broken finger and be on the phone and look up insurance things?
That would have
So
been problematic.
I now understand how to figure out doctors and network and insurance things. So I feel like that's an adulting upgrade, because I don't have a primary care physician in Denver. I haven't needed one.
I don't either.
So I really don't know. Until your thing, I didn't know how to use the medical system or the insurance. And this is like, sometimes a traumatic event just like puts you into overdrive and you're like, you have to solve something. And I'm like, all right, my friend needs surgery ASAP. How do I make this work? And I've learned how to do that. So it turns out you can go to the insurance company's website and there's usually like a network provider search tool. And that's how you
Maybe we should do an
out who's
episode
in
on how
network.
insurance works at some point, because
So
that
I
is
thought-
just the most confusing nonsense.
I thought about that, but we have like a large portion of the audience that isn't US based.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Like a
It wouldn't
large.
even-
So we've done house buying episodes. I guess a lot of the stuff we talk about in the house
we
buying
just have to
episode
put a lot of
is-
caveats on everything.
Yeah, it's just so different because like the way insurance works is so tied into how the government works.
Yeah.
Whereas like at least with a house, like most people do get a mortgage if they're going to buy a
Yeah,
house.
regardless
Like,
of where
most
they're-
people aren't
where they're
like, paying for a house outright just because they live in a different country.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we could make
Maybe
it
there's
useful.
a good resource somewhere.
Maybe there is, yeah. Or maybe we can like
that does it a better job already.
maybe we can get a researcher to like put together comprehensive like insurance and medical resource.
Yeah, and then it'd have to
for
be updated like
medi-
every single year
That's true.
as the laws change. It's a giant mess.
It is.
Maybe the lesson here is just maybe figure that stuff out before you desperately need it.
Yes. And I guess all I can say here is like I figured out how to do it, and at least in the US, I remember calling the hospital first and they couldn't tell me anything. So then I was like, I guess I have to go to the insurance provider, and that's what ended up helping. And then from there, it was kind of funny because this first surgeon I found was primarily a plastic surgeon, and I was trying to look up reviews.
Yeah, but they're also
on
a
Yelp.
hand surgeon.
Yeah, so all the reviews except for like one or two were like, he did such a good job on my facelift, and I'm like, should I really be sending?
Well,
word to
I
this guy?
also got a facelift while I was there.
Oh, okay.
I'm real pretty now. That's why I'm gonna leave this. Well, I'm probably gonna have a scar on my nose. Maybe I'll go back.
Maybe you can go back. Yeah,
No, I'm gonna leave it.
He could help you
I'm
with
gonna
that.
look cool, and I'm gonna tell
There you
everybody I got in a fight with a shark or something.
that is a good story
And they lightly nipped my nose, and that's all that happened. I'm not sure how I would make that happen, actually.
because you're really good at fighting sharks. Somebody else would have lost a limb.
How would
I
they
just
even
got
fit their jaw in
nipped
such a
in the
way that
nose.
they like nipped my nose but didn't hit
No,
anywhere
all
else?
their skin is like teeth.
Oh, okay.
So maybe you just scraped your nose
Okay,
against
that must.
the skin
I was nuzzling.
while you were like,
I was nuzzling the shark,
Yes.
trying to make it love me.
Yeah, you try to calm the shark first.
Yeah, it's an angry shark for no reason.
And then if it doesn't work, then you have to fight it. But it's like last resort.
Yeah.
Shark taming 101.
Sharks, they really just like long walks on the beach and just like slow romance. That's what they're into.
Exactly, especially if
the
they're
world
street
judges
sharks.
them, and that can hurt you.
It does hurt. Yeah, it can make you lash out, and like attack boats and stuff.
This is anybody who missed me on the podcast now doesn't, because this is a dumb non-lesson about shark romance.
Hey, man, this is part of what this podcast is known for.
That's
people
shark romance.
Need to know what they're gonna get when they listen to this podcast.
Yeah,
it's not all philosophy or tips on how to take advantage of your insurance.
Oh no, because I like to try to sound smart, but I'm also an idiot.
Yep.
At the same time.
Same here. Ask our girlfriends.
It's like Schrodinger's smart guy. Am I smart or stupid?
Yes.
Open the box and find out. Today it might be different.
So the funny thing is, now the College Info Geek website is going to have 2 posts that are roughly titled "What I Learned from Almost Dying on a Bike."
Oh yeah,
because I almost died on a bike too.
Oh yeah, but
not
it was from like
crash.
Dehydration.
It was from dehydration. Yeah,
that. You could have died from that. That's some serious stuff right there. Drink
that
your water,
was bad.
kids.
Do not push yourself to ride a bike more than you planned, unless you bring provisions for.
We need to watch out on
more
bikes.
than you planned.
That's a weird coincidence.
Yeah, we do. So now when I take a long bike ride, I bring more than one water bottle. And especially if I'm going out of a civilized area, I bring like a hydration pack and energy bars.
Yeah.
And a first aid kit. Oh, dude. So I was riding my bike. I didn't fall, but I was riding my bike a couple months ago, and I saw a guy who had fallen, and he had big old scrape on his leg.
Oh.
So I'm like, no worries, bro. Let me get my first aid kit out. Somebody had stolen my first aid kit out of my bike.
Of
because
course
welcome
they did,
to Denver.
Because
Who steals a first aid kit?
I never had anything stolen from me until we moved. Immediately,
Yeah.
my bike's gone.
I can understand stealing a multi-tool because that's like $45. I can understand stealing maybe the phone case I had in there that mounts to my bike stem. Why would you steal a first aid kit?
Stealing's a dangerous business. Some people fight back.
I guess that's true.
You might get scraped up, and you're gonna want to like, hold on, I need a Band-Aid now.
Yeah. Well, I was so mad about that I wanted to move out of my apartment right away. I solved that by buying a locked storage shed indoors instead of keeping my bike locked in the parking garage.
So people can't just be walking. Wait, what happened to the guy? Is he alive?
He's fine.
This guy died, and you were just like, well, I should have had my first aid kit.
It just so happened that even though I didn't have a first aid kit, I did have a single wet wipe in the bike. So I gave him the wet wipe, and I'm like, at least you can use this to disinfect it. And we weren't out in the sticks. Like, he was probably a mile away from a gas station. He was like, yes, I can ride. So I'm going to go to a gas station. I'm going to clean it up.
That's cool.
But I was like, what? He could have been hurt worse, and I didn't have my first aid kit because somebody stole it.
Yeah.
So, yes, now I have a locked shed, and nobody can steal my first
kit.
aid kit. Oh, I need a second aid kit. That's true.
That'll get him.
But keep first aid kit on you when biking. That is another thing. Well, we were on vacation, so I didn't have a first aid kit with me. Luckily, there were 2 people with medical training.
That was helpful.
On the mountain.
That was helpful.
And it's also helpful that they just happened to see us when they were riding the lift, and like they could have easily like not seen us and then taken way longer to get down there and help you out.
That's true.
So that was serendipitous.
Yeah. It all worked out. This is,
Yeah, I think it worked out. That should hopefully get back to full function, and then I can go back to it.
They said I can play piano again later.
Good.
So that's basically the hardest thing I can imagine needing it for.
Well, that and rock climbing.
Well, that too. But if I can play piano, which I play obsessively, and it's like the reason that my arms are stronger than expected for somebody who doesn't work out, like I feel like I'm going to push it hard enough that it should be good for rock climbing.
And I feel like rock climbing, unlike mountain biking, is a sport that, while it has risks, the way that we're going to do it is much less risky because we just go to a gym and like...
I feel like it's a lot more slow-paced.
It's super slow-paced. The worst that's going to happen, as long as, if you're being belayed, as long as your belay partner is trained properly and paying attention, or if you're using the auto belay, you're fine. Worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to, split your skin on a hold, which I will probably do very
you're
soon.
controlling the speed. It's not like the downhill mountain biking where okay, rock climb, And I have to go super fast, and I can't stop moving.
Yeah, it's not a sport that needs like intense reaction speed.
It's all about like strategy and slowly deciding what's the most reasonable thing.
I guess you could fall off the bouldering wall and get hurt. But if you're
I could fall off of it and get hurt, but I would still be more likely to see that coming.
Yes. Yeah, very true.
I don't unexpectedly grab a rock. I see that I'm about to move.
It's actually interesting. Yesterday we took the belay class and we went up to the bouldering wall afterwards, and the guy teaching the class was like, we get the most of our injuries at the bouldering wall. And I was like, oh, because the bouldering wall is way shorter.
Yeah.
But it's hugely padded at the bottom, so I'm like, oh, what could happen? Well, people fall off the wall at the wrong angle, and they'll like land on one foot and twist an ankle because they were falling with rotation or things like that.
Yeah.
Whereas on the higher routes, yes, it's higher, but you are roped in, so you're unlikely to get truly hurt unless you, I don't know, fall off the wall and then like swing back and bang your head or something.
Yeah, lots of new safety considerations that I might actually pay attention to now.
Anyway, I think that
that's basically it. I didn't die. Things are okay, and live good lives or whatever. Because you never know. You might wake up having flipped off a mountain bike going downhill somehow.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I guess you did kind of wake up from it.
Yeah. There are a few seconds where I like have no idea what happened because it was so fast.
Well, I'm glad you're okay, and I'm glad that some good came out of it.
Yep.
All right, what is this? 229?
Yep.
I don't know if we talked about anything that is worth linking to. I guess if you want to read my blog post about how I almost died on a mountain bike and what I learned from that.
Bike safety. These are the 1-2 resources.
So we'll link to that, and maybe we'll link to some like mountain biking safety stuff in case I think people may be interested in mountain biking. It seems like a growing sport.
It is cool. I think I'll try it again, not downhill.
Yeah, we'll go to some place that's like nice, flat, cross country, easy stuff.
Yeah.
Just like fun, like a chill ride.
Yeah.
Anywho, cigpodcast.com/229 to find whatever show notes there may be for this episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can also click the link in the description down below to get those show notes as well. If you guys enjoy the podcast, if you guys enjoy Martin being here, one way to support us is to write a rating and review over on Apple Podcasts. And if you haven't subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, you might want to do that so you can get new episodes delivered directly to your device every single Monday morning at, 8 a.m. EST, something like that?
Something like that.
Something around 8 in the morning, New York City time.
It will definitely be up by at least then.
Yeah. Sometimes earlier, maybe. But yeah, it's a good way to get the podcast in a format where you can listen to it on the go. So definitely do that if you haven't done that already. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I think that's about it. So we'll see you next week's episode. Stay cute.